Georgia is known for its vibrant cities, Civil War history, and Southern charm. But scattered across its forests, coastlines, mountains, and farmland are places that once carried enormous ambition. Towns that were industrial hubs, gold rush settlements, political centers, resort destinations, railroad junctions, and farming capitals. Today, many of them sit in silence. This is not a story of myths or legends. It's a story of economic shifts, environmental disasters, war, industrial collapse, and changing transportation routes. Today, we explore 15 Georgia ghost towns, each one abandoned for a different reason, and each one revealing something unique about the state's past. 1. Skull Shoals. Georgia's early industrial experiment. Located inside the Oconee National Forest, Skull Shoals was one of Georgia's earliest industrial communities in the early 1800s. What made it unique was its ambition. It wasn't just a mill town. It was a coordinated industrial complex. There were a grist mill, a paper mill, one of the earliest in the region, textile factory, blacksmith shop, worker housing. At its peak, hundreds lived here. But the town's downfall wasn't war or fire. It was soil erosion. Aggressive cotton farming in surrounding areas stripped the land of nutrients. Heavy rains caused massive erosion, filling the river with sediment. Flooding became frequent. Agriculture failed. The mills couldn't operate efficiently. By the early 20th century, Skull Shoals was abandoned. What remains today are tall brick walls and foundations, preserved within national forest land, making it one of Georgia's most visually striking industrial ruins. Its uniqueness lies in being an early example of environmental mismanagement leading to total economic collapse. 2. Ebenezer, Georgia's first capital. Founded in 1734 by German Protestant refugees known as Salzburgers, Ebenezer predates much of Georgia's early development. For a brief time, it served as Georgia's colonial capital. Its uniqueness. It was one of the earliest planned European settlements in the colony and deeply tied to religious freedom. However, its original location was poorly chosen. The nearby river caused flooding, and disease spread quickly in the swampy terrain. The settlers eventually relocated slightly downstream to what became New Ebenezer. Trade shifted toward Savannah, which had a better harbor and strategic advantages. As Savannah grew, Ebenezer declined. Today, only the Jerusalem Lutheran Church and cemetery remain. Ebenezer represents how geography determines survival, even for capital cities. 3. Auraria. The town that sparked America's first gold rush. In 1828, gold was discovered in North Georgia, 2 decades before California's famous rush. Auraria exploded overnight. What makes it unique is that it was one of the first major gold rush towns in American history. At its height, thousands of miners flooded the area. Businesses thrived. Boarding houses, saloons, supply stores, all built rapidly. But gold rush towns are inherently unstable. When richer deposits were found nearby in Dahlonega, miners relocated. The U.S. Mint was established in Dahlonega instead, cementing its importance. Auraria slowly emptied. Unlike some ghost towns, a few structures still stand and private residents live nearby, giving it a semi-ghost identity. Auraria's uniqueness lies in being part of the event that ultimately triggered the forced removal of the Cherokee people. The Georgia Gold Rush directly contributed to the Trail of Tears. 4. Sunbury. The colonial port that lost the trade war. Sunbury was once Georgia's second-largest port city during the 18th century. It thrived on coastal trade and shipping. What made it unique was its strategic coastal importance during the Revolutionary War. But economic rivalry proved fatal. Savannah's harbor was deeper and more accessible for large ships. Trade gradually shifted. After the Revolutionary War, Sunbury never recovered economically. A devastating hurricane in 1854 sealed its fate. Today, almost nothing remains but historical markers. Sunbury is a powerful example of how shifting trade routes can erase entire cities. 5. Cassville, town destroyed by war. Cassville was once a prosperous town in Bartow County and home to 2 colleges, rare for its size. Its uniqueness lies in being an educational hub in pre-Civil War Georgia. In 1864, during the Atlanta Campaign, Union forces occupied the town. It was set on fire during General Sherman's march. Unlike some towns that were rebuilt, Cassville never regained its former prominence. Today, only cemeteries and scattered foundations remain. Cassville represents the permanent scars left by the Civil War. 6. Petersburg. The cotton port that vanished. Petersburg once stood along the Savannah River and thrived as a cotton shipping port in the late 1700s. Its uniqueness was its role as a frontier trade hub connecting inland farmers to global markets. However, as river navigation patterns changed and railroads emerged, river ports declined. Trade shifted elsewhere. By the mid-1800s, Petersburg was abandoned. Its decline demonstrates how railroads reshaped the American economy and erased river towns in the process. 7. Waterway Allatoona. The town beneath the lake. Before there was Lake Allatoona, there was a railroad town. Allatoona developed in the 19th century along the Western and Atlantic Railroad and became strategically important during the Civil War. Nearby Allatoona Pass was the site of a fierce 1864 battle during the Atlanta Campaign. What made Allatoona unique was its combination of transportation and military significance. It was both a rail corridor and a defensive stronghold. But its final disappearance had nothing to do with war. In the 1940s, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers created Lake Allatoona for flood control and power generation. The original town site was submerged. Today, when water levels drop, remnants of roads and foundations sometimes reappear, silent outlines of a town sacrificed for modern infrastructure. Allatoona represents how progress can quite literally drown the past. 8. Troopville. The county seat that lost its power. Troopville once served as the county seat of Lowndes County in the 1830s. Its uniqueness lies in its political importance. It was a center of legal and administrative activity in southern Georgia. But Troopville had one major weakness. It wasn't connected to the expanding railroad system. When the railroad bypassed it in favor of a new nearby stop, that new settlement quickly grew into Valdosta. Government offices relocated. Businesses followed. Residents moved. Within a few decades, Troopville faded into farmland. Today, only a historical marker identifies its former location. Troopville is a clear example of how railroads didn't just build towns, they chose which towns would survive. 9. White Sulphur Springs. Georgia's forgotten resort town. In the 19th century, mineral springs were believed to have healing properties. White Sulphur Springs became one of Georgia's early resort destinations. Wealthy visitors traveled to bathe in its sulfur-rich waters, socialize, and escape summer heat. What made it unique was its status as a health tourism hub long before modern spa culture. Elegant hotels were built to accommodate guests. But as medical science advanced and travel patterns changed, the popularity of mineral spring resorts declined. Fires and economic downturns finished what shifting tastes had started. Today, little remains of the once fashionable destination. White Sulphur Springs reflects how even booming tourism industries can vanish when public belief changes. 10. Andersonville. The town that survived its own infamy. Andersonville is widely known for Camp Sumter, the Confederate prison where thousands of Union soldiers were held during the Civil War. What makes Andersonville unique is that the prison overshadowed the town itself. After the war ended, the prison closed, and the small railroad depot town surrounding it struggled to define its identity beyond tragedy. While Andersonville never fully disappeared, its growth stalled. Today, the area is preserved as a National Historic Site. Andersonville stands apart because its ghost is not economic collapse, it is memory. The town exists, but its history is permanently tied to one of the darkest chapters of the war. 11. Sheltonville. Lost to Lake Lanier. Sheltonville was a small farming community in Hall County. Its uniqueness lies in its fate. In the 1950s, the creation of Lake Lanier flooded entire communities, cemeteries, and crossroads settlements, Sheltonville among them. Residents relocated. Buildings were demolished or left to be submerged. Today, during extreme droughts, fragments of foundations and roads sometimes reappear beneath the waterline. Sheltonville represents a quieter kind of disappearance, not war, not failure, but planned relocation for regional development. 12. Dewsville. The town that agriculture left behind. Dewsville developed as a small agricultural hub in Wilkes County. Its uniqueness was typical of many rural crossroads communities: a general store, a church, a post office, and cotton trade activity. But when mechanized farming reduced labor needs and younger generations moved to cities for opportunity, small farming towns like Dewsville slowly emptied. There was no dramatic event, just gradual decline. Today, little remains beyond scattered structures and private land. Dewsville is important because it represents the most common cause of ghost towns in the South: rural population migration. 13. Berlin. The railroad that couldn't compete. Berlin began as a railroad and farming town in Colquitt County. Its uniqueness lies in its agricultural shipping role: cotton, tobacco, and produce once moved through its rail lines. However, highway construction and trucking industries reduced reliance on small rail depots. Nearby Moultrie absorbed regional commerce. Berlin survived, but much of its original commercial center declined dramatically. It stands today as a partially faded railroad town, not fully abandoned, but a shadow of its early 20th century importance. 14. Hoboken. The town the timber industry built. Hoboken grew around the timber and turpentine industries in southeast Georgia. Its uniqueness was its dependence on logging operations that fueled Georgia's lumber economy. When timber production slowed and rail demand declined, economic momentum weakened. Unlike total ghost towns, Hoboken still has residents, but many of its historic commercial structures reflect a bygone industrial peak. Hoboken represents resource dependency. When the resource fades, so does the boom. 15. Brooklet, historic core. Bypassed by the highway. Brooklet developed along a railroad corridor in Bullock County. Its uniqueness lies in how transportation shifts reshaped its structure. When highways replaced rail as the primary transportation system, commercial traffic rerouted. Businesses that depended on rail access declined. Brooklet still exists, but parts of its early historic core reflect the impact of being bypassed rather than destroyed. It illustrates how towns don't always vanish. Sometimes they simply shrink around new infrastructure. Ghost towns are rarely about mystery. They're about change. Transportation evolves. Resources run out. Wars destroy. Weather reshapes geography. And economic focus moves on. But these places matter. They are physical records of ambition, risk, innovation, and failure. They remind us that permanence is an illusion. The cities we see as permanent today may one day become quiet foundations beneath trees. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Georgia's forgotten towns, consider subscribing for more historical documentaries exploring the hidden layers of America. Because across this country, thousands of towns like these still wait to be remembered. Thank you for joining us today. Share this video and subscribe for more videos about Hidden America documentaries. Also drop a comment about your thoughts in the comment section.